Hey everyone. So thank you so much for jumping on with us for an impromptu live stream regarding the case of missing mom, Nikki Cheng Saelee McCain. She is still missing, and I know that a lot of people in the community, as well as her family and friends, are extremely frustrated with just, I guess, the lack of progress. So I wanted to bring everyone together, Jarrett, myself, as well as Brian, who you are all very familiar with. And now we have Douglas McCarthy or McGregor. I'm sorry, Douglas. Thank you so much for jumping on and being a part of this. You are amazing. I mean, you are a geographic profiler. You're a forensic human behavior specialist. You've done it all. So, can you just, not to put you on the spot, but can you just
That's okay.
introduce yourself and just talk about what you do and how your work could pertain to a case like Nikki's?
Of course. So, as you mentioned, I'm a geographic profiler. So what I look at is I look at the geographic, the environmental, the spatial, and the temporal elements of human behavior. I work alongside criminal profilers, people working in forensics and intel, and in what I specialize in is I specialize in serial and violent crime, missing persons cases, locating human remains, fugitive apprehension, cold cases. A lot of geographic profilers will focus on the non-violent crime, but I focus
Mhm.
on the violent crime. So what I do is I take those elements of human behavior and I use them to create a geographic profile of an individual, and from that I can ascertain certain things such as where they may have uh, where they may have where they may have a dump site, where they may have deposited a body,
Mhm.
um, where they may be located, where they may live if they're a serial offender, um, and uh, and there's many different components to it, which we can break down as we go on. But in a nutshell, that's what I focus on as a profiler.
Okay. Have you ever dealt with a case like this where only law enforcement is allowed to search an area because tribal land or whatever the case may be?
I have quite a few cases on the go right now where the agency I'm working for is trying to locate human remains, and technically right now in this case, Nikki McCain's case, it's a missing persons case, but there is a possibility it's a no body homicide, where the agency may be searching for human remains. So I do have several of those cases on the go right now, and uh, you know, generally speaking, it's always more efficient if I work with the agency directly because they do have the capability to go in, obviously, following protocol and getting warrants, but they do have the capability to search um, any area that is accessible that they have those warrants for. So in this case, if the agency had the warrants and had the approval to go in and search this type of land, then it would make my job a lot easier having that access.
So when you say the agency, you're referring to your agency, not law enforcement?
No, the law enforcement agency. Sorry.
Okay, so yeah, law
Yeah.
enforcement technically is able to search the property, but I guess, and maybe I'm confused, are they allowed to bring your organization, or let's say Brian, USPA, your organization with them?
As long as I'm under the law enforcement umbrella and under that agency's NDA, then I'm considered an agent of that law
Oh,
enforcement agency. So as long as I'm cooperating directly with them, then I am permitted to access the sites that they are permitted to access.
okay, got it. And Brian, something that I brought up last night, Jarrett and I were discussing this. I feel like with the search, when Sebastian Rogers went missing, there's no proof that Sebastian might be in water, but they had a dive team search for him, or they had, waterways searched, and drones and everything. But with Nikki's case, have we seen any water searches or any type of drones or dive teams? I just feel like we haven't seen any of that.
So it's $1 million question with any of these searches, right? Because when there's not specific credible information or intelligence to lead you to search a specific area, you can be exhausting resources and personnel, be it, you know, from the public or law enforcement's resources themselves, right?
Mhm.
Where if you're just searching a body of water because it's in the general vicinity of where Nikki and Tyler lived, or by the
Yeah.
rancheria, you know, if there's no specific reason to do it, right? It feels good to the public that something's being done, but it should have the backing of somebody like Douglas with access to the case file, with access to the leads and the tips that
Yeah.
says, hey, there's a strategy behind how we're deploying these resources, right? So it's not just a search of a general huge area or a general huge body of water, that there's some strategy, some logic behind what's happening. And that's what's exciting about, you know, Douglas and his team potentially participating in this.
Yeah, so that's really exciting. Jarrett, go ahead. Oh no, you're mute. What's going on? Jarrett's muted. Oh, too bad for him. Sorry. I'm just kidding. When you can unmute yourself, let us know. But I mean, there supposedly are bodies of water around the casino, you know, around the Redding Rancheria. There's canals of some sort, but I guess I don't understand why. I know that it costs money. I just don't understand why everything wouldn't be searched if you're just getting tons of tips here. And like, I even know what I read on Facebook, right? And what I read in these groups. I know that you can't take everything seriously. I'm very aware of that. But like, how do you constitute what a valid tip is and what isn't? If someone says, hey, maybe she's in this body of water, maybe she's over here. Well, how do you know unless you don't look?
Well, there's an inherent problem with reacting to every single lead physically that comes in on Facebook or, you know, through an anonymous tip line. And again, that goes to just a completely exhausting resources. I will say that there was an effort to search that waterbed, that creek that's to the north of the rancheria. There was a search effort there by the public, right? So we have to kind of separate, you know, fact from fiction here in some of the instances about, you know, what has or hasn't been done by either private search parties from Nikki's family or by law enforcement, right? A lot of law enforcement's activities, no one on Facebook knows about, and nor do I know about in most cases, right? So, you know, that's as frustrating, and I share the public's frustration, right? I do. You know, it does seem like things are slowing down. You know, do we get credible tips from time to time still coming in? Absolutely. Our phone is still ringing. The anonymous tips are still coming in. But again, separating the wheat from the chaff there to say, you know, this is a conjecture that someone read on Facebook. We do that pretty quickly by contacting that person right away. Okay, so that tip comes in. That's what my team's job is to do, is to help separate these things before it actually gets reacted to, right? Where we pick up the phone and make the call to that person that made that tip, and then we thoroughly talk through where they got the information, right? Was it, I heard this person say on Facebook that he heard somebody say, right? Now, when it's 2 or 3 layers removed, we're still tracking on all these tips that come in like that. We are absolutely tracking on them. That goes into the data pool, but that's not something that's going to warrant, you know, hitting the green light, calling in dogs and dive teams.
I know.
When it's something like that.
Okay. Jarrett, are you good? What is that is so weird. I don't even understand. Okay, well, you could sit and look pretty.
Jarrett.
I know. I mean, you can try. Yeah. Well, and Douglas, I just, you know, a few things that I have observed throughout this with just things that I've seen from Nikki's husband, who appears to be, I guess, the main suspect in this and everything. You know, I don't know. Is that Jarrett's not here, but is that okay to say he's allegedly the suspect? I mean, everything kind of points to law enforcement looking at him between the domestic violence charge, the fires. It's crazy. I did notice in some communications that he has had with friends or family, he does a lot of we's. Like he talks, oh, we this, can we do anything? I just feel like this really proves that they have strong family ties or family bonds, if you will, which leads me to believe that there could be multiple people involved in this. No, Jarrett, sorry. But yeah, Doug, go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of, who's a suspect, I don't think I've heard that there's an official suspect has been named. Now, different agencies use different terms, but I generally use, persons of interest and then a suspect once they're kind of officially named. Like in most cases, when a woman goes missing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, her partner is a person of interest.
Right.
Obviously, it depends under what circumstances she goes missing. So is he a person of interest? Probably. I would assume so. And are they looking into him? Most definitely. And, based on the evidence they find, we'll see where that goes. Sorry, what was the second part of your question?
Well, this is like twofold, I guess, where it's like, if you are doing investigations based on human behavior, how the hell are you going to get this guy to sit down and talk to you when he probably doesn't want to?
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, that's up to him, right? If he wants to come in willingly and interview and have a discussion, that's completely up to him, as it is anybody else. And, sorry, just going back, you had mentioned, are there more people involved? He does have a lot of family and friends in that area, and I'm not pointing a finger at the husband by any means at this point. But, in any case like this, there's always the possibility that somebody else is involved. Maybe not directly with the violence, the homicide, but maybe, assisting in other ways, right? So you always want to look at that person's close personal network, friends, family, the people they trust. If they have a criminal background, who they've worked with in the past, and go from there. And that all becomes part of your profile, right? So when I create a geographic profile, it's very intel heavy, and I'm always starting with the suspect. And in a case where you're searching for human remains, you always have to have a suspect, right? Because you can't just search for human remains. Where do you start looking? Right. So you always have to have a suspect and go from there. If I have 3 different suspects, then I'm basically creating 3 different geographic profiles. Right. So if you have one, I'm creating one geographic profile, which still includes their whole network of people. And that's where I start.
Okay. That's so interesting. Now, the Redding Rancheria, the tribal land, is about 31 acres, which I guess it doesn't seem like a lot. I feel like when it comes to just California and the way everything is laid out, but I do feel like this 31 acres seems to be just the focus of everything, and I don't know if you guys agree with that or if you can even share that at this point without hindering, or Brian, the investigation at all. But it does seem like this is the area where I feel like most of the search has taken place.
Yeah, and there's been a number of leads leading back to that, and some of the most credible leads. Okay, so that's something that I know law enforcement takes very, very seriously, and that those things are being tracked down. So to your point, there's also as I was talking to Douglas yesterday about this, that there's quite a few properties surrounding Redding that are owned by family, friends, other associates of Tyler and Nikki that they frequent, right? And some of these properties are large, some are small, some are located near other fires that took place. Okay, so it's the layout of, you know, this whole area, or the geographic area that's related to this case is pretty expansive.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my gosh. I think that, you know, having someone like you, Douglas, and your team possibly getting involved could really, really make a big difference here. And Brian, I think you would agree with that. And hopefully that, you know, that would be a possibility.
I would think so. Yeah. Or I'd hope so. Yeah.
Have you guys, Douglas, have you guys getting involved? Maybe.
Yeah. It's go ahead, Brian.
I was going to say that we're definitely working hard on that right now.
Okay.
You know, we got some things in the works to make that happen.
Oh my God.
It's a possibility, Lauren. And, you know, somebody in the chat asked if I'm officially involved, and I'm not officially involved in any capacity at this point. But going back to what you said, Lauren, you know, about the 31-acre property, and before that you mentioned, you know, bodies of water.
Yeah.
I just want to kind of make it clear to everybody here that, you know, as a geographic profiler, when I work on cases of locating human remains, I never find the body. That's really important, right? So it would be a complete luck if I said the body's beside this tree and they were beside that tree, right? It's not an X marks the spot kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, by using my different techniques, I can I locate, I identify probable areas or areas of high probability to search, right? And then once I've identified those areas, I mean, it could be a body of water, it could be a land, a geographic region. Then, you know, then you send in the searchers, you send in the HRD teams, you send in the technology, the drones, and they find the body, right? So I'm just locating potential sites, and by doing that, I'm helping law enforcement save time, money, resources, everything, right?
Yeah.
Because instead of searching 100 acres, they're searching 5, for example. So kind of that's where I come in. And, you know, an area like a size of, say, 30 acres,
yeah,
I can narrow it down a little more possibly, but if you already have only 30 acres, you don't really need me to, right? There's different techniques now that you can employ that where I can kind of stand back and observe and wait to the next step.
Right. And well, I'll ask you something after we check Jarrett's audio.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. So I'm in on my phone. Anyway, so Doug, nice to meet you. Brian, great to see you. Lauren as well. So Doug, taking what you just said, I mean, I've been on these body recovery or body search, even narrowing it down to 5, which is huge. I mean, you take this huge swath of land and narrow it down to like 5 acres. It's still such a meticulous, difficult process. I mean, we've had, you know, I've been on searches where we're searching a yard. We've had dogs come up that were unable to locate a shallow grave. I've had to actually bring witnesses who were at the burial come out and point right here. This is where you search. So is technology getting better? Even the ground penetrating radar, we've had some difficulty with. I live in anthracite coal country, and I don't know, there's been some commentary about that. It's difficult to use that here. Has technology gotten better in the GPR world or in the search of ground world, at least than in my experience?
It has. So, I mean, you have different investigative tools like myself, you know, geographic profiling, Winthroping, they kind of go hand in hand. The technology is getting better. You know, dogs are a great resource. Technology is a great resource, but, you know, they're all affected by different environmental conditions. You know,
Right.
GPR is affected by different environmental conditions, and, you know, GPR can have a tough time picking up certain things. But you have other technology coming into play, like LiDAR, which is very efficient, very beneficial, but at the same time, it's very expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so most agencies don't have that capability to use something like a LiDAR equipped drone, which I've used. I've been with agencies in the past that have used them, you know, but the drone itself costs $20,000 to $30,000, right? So, It's not available to everybody, but it
What's
is out
the
there.
tech though, Doug? What's the tech with that? Like, how does LiDAR work?
So LiDAR is light detection and ranging. So it's the same as radar or sonar, right? Sonar, sound, radar, radio waves, except it uses light. And we all have it on our phones. I have it on my phone, right? If you have an iPhone Pro with the three cameras, you can get a LiDAR app on your phone. You have LiDAR on your phone. And I do LiDAR imagery with my phone. And what LiDAR can do is LiDAR can pick up, it can penetrate foliage. So let's say you're searching an area of deep brush. Well, you can fly a LiDAR drone over and you can get a complete X-ray image of that entire area and cut out all the foliage, right? So all you see is the earth. You can send LiDAR down mine shafts into caves and it'll do a complete image. If there's a body down there, it'll show up. It'll just show up right away. And it can penetrate water to a certain extent. So, and it'll detect disturbances in the earth, in the ground, in the soil, right? And it can even pick up, people are using LiDAR now to discover roads that existed, 80 years ago, right? Because although we can't see them with the naked eye, even Google Earth can't see them, LiDAR can pick up those old disturbances in the soil that just don't exist anymore. So LiDAR is a fantastic tool. It's used in everything. All our cars these days have LiDAR cameras attached to them. So that's a new evolving technology that's coming out, that's being used. And once you just group all these together, and it makes for a complete package. But you really have to use all the resources at your disposal. HRD dogs are great, like you said. They don't always pick up the scent, but they have picked up scent. I think the oldest I've ever seen is 80 years old. Right? They can pick up a body that was buried 80 years ago. They're not sniffing the body per se, but the decomposition, it gets stuck in the soil. The soil keeps it, right? So they're picking that up in the soil. But so to answer your question, there's a lot of different tools at law enforcement's disposal, and they're available. So it's just what they have access to, and what's within their budget and everything else.
Let's say that Brian gave you everything that he has uncovered with Shasta County thus far about this case, everything. He turns it over to you. Would you be able to profile this? Do you think you would be able to narrow down, based on your preliminary conversations, certain areas that law enforcement should focus on?
Yes and no. I'm always more accurate with my case analysis and my findings if I have access to the complete case file, right? So, I mean, I think everybody can agree on that, right? If I have access to everything law enforcement has access to, my final product is always going to be better. I think everything Brian's got is fantastic. I think he has tons of information on this case, and it would help greatly. And I think I could draw conclusions from that, but it would be made more accurate with an actual case file itself.
Do many police forces have a geographic profiler on salary, let's say?
No, there's only myself. As far as I know, there's only myself and one other full-time geographic profiler out there.
Wow.
And I know two others, one in South Africa and one in Italy, that also do geographic profiling. I don't know how often. Now, that being said, there's a lot of crime analysts out there that have taken a geographic profiling course, right? But if they, in their daily work, if they do use that skill set, it's most often being used for nonviolent crime, auto theft, ATM theft, bank robberies, which I guess is violent, but that kind of thing. So they do have that skill set, but they're not applying it necessarily to violent crime. And that's why I don't work for one agency, because it's not it doesn't really make sense for me to be employed by one agency, right? Because
Yeah.
how often you need me is you're just not going to need me all the time. That's just the gist of it, right? So somebody like a sheriff's office, a rural sheriff's office, they may need me once every few years, right?
Right.
So it just doesn't make sense. So it makes more sense, the fact that I focus on violent crime, to consult and work for different agencies.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about how larger police forces will, let's say, have an accident reconstructionist in-house where, a smaller one wouldn't. And it just seems to make sense that in larger cities or wherever they would have somebody that they can call, or I guess high crime areas, they have someone they can call to help them and assist them with this stuff. And I guess I'm wondering, like, at what point would, let's say, a police force call in someone like you, or would it be the FBI that does something like this? What point do they have to get to where they're just like, okay, enough is enough, we need to call in somebody else?
Usually after they've exhausted all their resources and efforts. Generally speaking, and I'm trying to kind of break through this wall right now, but for the most part, I always work. I mean, I'll just call them cold cases. They may be active, but they've gone unsolved, right? So for the most part, I'm brought in for cold cases. We can't solve this serial crime, this homicide, this, locating this body. So they finally come to me, and obviously, the more time that's gone on, the harder it is, right?
Yeah.
In any case, right? What percent of cold cases are solved? So I'm trying to break through that barrier and get in on cases as soon as possible. And it's starting to get better. My phone's ringing each day now because more and more agencies are discovering geographic profiling and what it can do.
Yeah, definitely. Are you ever hired by a family?
I am. I work for families. All my work for families has always been pro bono. My last big case I worked was the Rachel Morin case. I worked for their family.
I've seen you talk about that. You're amazing. I don't.
So
I'm
Doug, how do
smiling.
you,
Yeah.
Doug, how do you market yourself? I mean, how do people know you're out there?
Social media. I've always been on X or Twitter. I recently just started an Instagram and YouTube page as well, but I'm completely new to Instagram and YouTube, so I'm trying to figure that all out.
Talk to Lauren. Yeah. She's a social media genius, right?
No, I'm not. Okay, coming from Jared, he thinks Jared just knows how to retweet and reshare. That's it. So anyone that does more than that, he thinks is great.
Usually after the show aired.
Yeah, that's also another great point. He retweets it after. But so someone said, why can't you get a case file? I'm going some of the questions. I mean, you can if you are hired to work on this case. You absolutely can, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly. If an agency brings me on, such as in this case, I mean, there's the whole process. You got to go through getting an NDA signed, and different agencies have to go through different political channels to do that, different official channels. And then they open up the case file.
It takes a while to get the NDA. Oh, really?
Yeah, well, it can. It all depends on the agency. Some have 5 steps to go through, others have 1, right? It depends on what channels they have to go through. But there's always the NDA to put in place, and then you have to work out the other terms of the agreement. So, ideally you'd like to get in as quick as possible, but sometimes it can take time, and that's just a reality.
And Doug, if you don't mind my kind of shamelessly promoting you here, but you bring a whole team as well. So, you have a very multidisciplinary group that, you can be a real force multiplier for any investigative effort. It's quite impressive. If you want to talk a little bit about that as well, that how you kind of bring all those pieces of the puzzle together.
Yeah, sure. For the last, I'm not sure how long I've been doing this. We'll say 8 years. I've been, for the most part, working independently, occasionally with another individual here and there. But over the last few years, within the group we have right now, it's a group of 7 people, and I've been working different cases with different people within that group, and we've kind of all just gotten together and said, why don't we just make this a formal thing and create an official team? And I won't name them all right now because we are going to. I'll kind of say what our kind of skill sets are, but we are going to have put this together officially, and then hopefully have a hard launch at some point. But within our team, we have 2 ex homicide detectives, a professional tracker, an amazing case file and data analyst, an offender profiler, a DNA specialist. So we kind of have the full group within our unit, and we do. So we come on and we do our best to get everybody put on to an NDA. So we can draw from the different areas of expertise for each case that we work.
Doug,
Wow.
even after you sign those NDAs, so it's like basically law enforcement is contracting with a third-party vendor with your area of expertise. And we've done that. I've done that. I was a prosecutor for 20 years. So if a case that was particularly like multi-jurisdictional in nature or something like that, are you working side by side with law enforcement? Even if you have your guys that are homicide detectives that are retired, do you move lock, stock, and barrel with an investigator typically when you're out at a scene, when you're conducting witness interviews and things of that nature? Are you working right alongside those folks?
Absolutely. It has to be a complete 100% joint effort, and it is their case. We're just there to assist, but everything, it's still their case. And in the end, we hope that we can add something and move the case forward. Obviously, the goal is to solve it, but it's that agency who solves it. It's that agency's case, and you have to have that relationship, right? You have to have that strong relationship in order to work together and move these cases forward. And we also want, we want that reputation of being able to work alongside an agency and not butt heads with an agency. And just by doing that, it makes everything easier, right? Working the case easier, dealing with people easier. And it's always good to kind of build those strong relationships. And that's always one of our primary goals.
And it's weird. There's a pride thing, like we rely on third-party experts regularly in our presentations. We'll have a blood spatter expert, a lab that we've used, a psychiatrist that's employed in their own clinic. It seems like there's this investigator pride and this investigator competition sometimes where like Lauren said, asking you, do agencies employ people with your expertise? The reality is no, it's cost prohibitive. So if you don't have somebody with that expertise, the logical step is, hey, partner with a vendor in the trade, an expert in the trade. I just think there's oftentimes, like you said, there is headbutting out there. There's a lot of jurisdictional, battles with people. And I hope that your specialized area and your team can overcome those kind of things and avoid those obstacles to getting in play. I mean, am I wrong that there are police departments who say we don't need anybody coming in here?
For sure. And we've seen that a lot. And, we all see that just, watching the news and watching different cases, and, they won't invite other agencies in to help them with the case. And, that happens all the time. And that's obviously a hurdle. But I'd like to counter that with, I think it says a lot about an agency if they're willing to go that step and invite another agency or private consultant, subject matter experts in, because it shows that, one, it's being humble and it's saying, we don't know where to go from here, or we need assistance in taking this case to the next step. We don't have the resources. So it's very humble of them to do that. And it's very, very proactive. And I think it looks good within the community to show that you're willing to take that step and search out resources that you don't have. So I think it's humble, but I also think it looks very professional on any agency to do that. And we're never looking to get any, we're never looking to be in the spotlight. We're never looking to be the ones that they say, you know, this group or this person helped us solve this case. I've been involved in cases and my name's never mentioned after I provide my analytical product, because I'm not solving the case. I'm just giving them a product and they're doing it. So we're never looking for that, for those kind of accolades. You know, the most we're looking for is the ability to kind of maybe on our website or social media say that we worked with this agency, just to show that we're out there working with different agencies.
Right.
That's about it.
You
And
guys
Jared,
read my
Jared,
mind.
I'll jump in. You know, I've run across that myself in numerous cases, you know, where walls get put up and they're not looking for any help whatsoever. And I can say from my own experience why I'm so excited about the prospect of Douglas and his team coming on to this is that is not the case, and that has not been the case with Shasta County. That they seem very willing and open to work with folks from, you know, various supporting nonprofits or agencies, you know, from whatever perspective. So, you know, I did want to just say that, you know, certainly I agree that as a general rule that can happen, but in this case, I'm optimistic here.
That's literally what I was wondering. You guys all read my mind. I was going to ask, I guess, how the temperature was in Shasta County with USPA coming in. Let's say Douglas comes in with his organization. Do they feel less than, or are they so happy about it? And how does that look to the public? To me, that looks great. It looks like you're doing everything you can. And I know that more specifically, I'm sure that law enforcement really wants to succeed in finding Nikki after Sherry Papini, and how silly they most likely felt after that whole thing. So I feel like, you know, that it's great that they are doing everything that they possibly can, and they're so open to having extra hands here. And this is nice. Douglas is a great man. He's in it for the right reasons. That's very kind. I'll try to pin more comments, but yeah, I mean, this is really exciting. The prospect of Douglas joining the search with his team and Brian, in addition to the Shasta County. I really think that, yeah, it could make a huge difference. And then Kenneth said, do you think that Douglas would be welcome to the investigation? I guess that's a question in regards to Shasta County.
I'll tell you, Douglas and I had a great call yesterday where we were able to talk in depth about some things. And I'll tell you, to answer your question, Kenneth, it's all I've been thinking about for the last, you know, almost 24 hours here to hopefully get him on the case. And we're making moves to make this happen.
Have you spoken to Shasta County? Are you allowed to say that if you've kind of planted the seed with them yet?
Yeah, we've definitely planted a seed. So we're hoping to set this, you know, get this thing in motion sooner rather than later.
Okay, that's great. I mean, I know that there's a lot of locals in the Facebook groups and everything, but can you speak to how people are feeling right now? Are they still feeling a bit nervous to come forward? I know the tip line, once you started that anonymous tip line, you started getting a lot more tips because people could have their anonymity. But I mean, you know, I think a lot of people are still nervous from what I understand.
Yeah. And, you know, you saw some comments in the chat here about a lead and a source that came in. And, you know, we've had very similar conversations with a number of people that they're in a lot of fear to speak to police, to speak to us, you know, for whatever reason, right? That their employer or familial ties or, you know, fear of violence being done to them for saying something. So yeah. There is quite a bit of fear out there. And I do always reiterate that, you know, we do have an anonymous tip form. All right. We do have a line that they can call. We're not local, right? So, you know, as an organization that often helps that, you know, we don't live right down the road. So the person answering our tip line is almost always me. And if it's not me, it's one of my colleagues. And they're not local to Reading. So there's not, you know, familial connections or associations there. So, I do encourage people to come forward. I know that there's more people out there with information. So, we're encouraging you to come forward.
And are you guys, I mean, there seems to be a new fire every other week that has some sort of, I don't know, close distance to either a McCain property or the Redding Rancheria. And again, I know it's California and this happens all the time, but are you guys aware of that? Are you keeping tabs on all of those fires that seem to keep occurring?
Yeah, I mean, there's a question of capacity from my standpoint, right? Where we're getting this information on these fires. We're reading the connections that are being made on social media or some tips that are coming inbound to us. This is actually one of the things that Douglas and I spoke about yesterday, is bringing in that, that real data analysis side of this investigation, that those pieces can then be put and organized, put in the right spot that they can be actually analyzed, right? Because, every theory about every fire, there are a lot of fires in California right now. We do know that one fire started on the Olinda Road property where Tyler and Nikki lived, right? We know that there was another one on Yali Bala out by a family house, right? Those are the two, certainly the two fires that I have circled in red. But, there's a fire all the time out there. So it's hard to, take that mountain of information and make sense of it.
I agree. I was just curious. I heard about a storage facility. I heard about a bunch of them. So, well, I want to know if anyone else in the chat has questions for Douglas, Jarrett, Brian. Pop them in right now if you have them, so we can let these gentlemen move along with their day and save lives. Okay. I'll wait for a minute, but I'm super grateful that you guys were able to hop on and explain all of this. I'm really hoping that it works out and that this will give Nikki's family just some hope that things are happening and things are being done, and there's a really, really strong chance that Nikki will be found.
And there's no downside to bringing Doug in. Brian, I'm pleased to hear you're championing him into that investigation too. I don't see a downside. I mean, everybody's looking for the same answers here.
Absolutely.
Yeah, really. I totally agree. And I really do think that this is all really wonderful, and that, hopefully we'll have good news soon. I don't know if that good is the right word, but you guys know what I'm trying to say. All right. And I will look, Reading Homeless. I'll look at the links after that you provided. It's hard to do the chat and talk at the same time sometimes. But all right, guys, thank you all so much. Don't forget to share this out there with anybody that may have missed this. I know it's a bit early in California, but Douglas, thank you so much for joining us. Brian, thank you so much as usual. And Jarrett,
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye now.